Big 12 or go home. I'm Brandon Shanahan, joined as always by Iowa Broadcasting Drew Russell. It's Big 12 championship week here, fella. We got it's a big one. We've been talking about it for a while. And first thing I kind of wanted to get into, because there's a lot of good that we'll get into. The one bad that I took away from this weekend is we came in with like 124 different outcomes, and I felt like we got kind of gypped for how exciting I was trying to sell this weekend as. Texas and Oklahoma took care of business on Friday, and then it was just a matter of, well, if Oklahoma State wins, they're in. If they don't, Oklahoma's in, which I found very underwhelming.
It was underwhelming, but the games themselves, at least the Saturday games involving Oklahoma State, and I'll even throw Kansas State in there since they were originally in that conversation. Those themselves were quite entertaining in what was a pretty entertaining weekend of Big 12 football and college football as a whole.
Yeah, and I'll kind of jump into a couple of entertaining games, including Oklahoma State and BYU. Oklahoma State, for a while there, looked like they were going to get run out of the stadium, just like they did against UCF a couple of weeks ago. It felt like that same kind of rhythm and routine. Eventually, they found some rhythm. They didn't panic.
Mm-hmm.
Coaching comes into to play quite a bit there.
Yeah,
battled back, found a way to win late against a very scrappy BYU team looking to get that elusive 6 win.
What's interesting about the Texas and Oklahoma 3 weeks ago were in the driver's seat for the Big 12 championship game.
Almost seemed like
they both made it. Right. But I remember you and I had that conversation of who has the tougher road to get the conference championship game. Texas had to go to TCU, to Iowa State, and then at home against Texas Tech. And Oklahoma State, they had to go to Central Florida, to Houston, and then at home versus BYU. And you and I were rightfully at the time said, no question, Okie State's road looks pretty clean considering. In Texas, they do have some, a TCU team that's ticked. Ames is always a fascinating place to play. And then a Texas Tech team that's going to have some beef going into that game in Austin. And they relatively dominated 2 of those games. Even TCU had it on control for most of the game outside of a chaotic fourth quarter where they almost pulled a crazy upset. But Oklahoma State, on the other hand, gets absolutely shellacked against Central Florida and then struggles against Houston, but finds a way, and then struggles against BYU. But thank goodness when you have the legend himself, Ollie Gordon, running, it's all okay. When you have 165 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns, I say it's good to have that guy on your team.
You're absolutely right. And I think, boy, it just felt like the football gods were on our side for once.
Yes.
Because if Oklahoma State doesn't win that game, we get another Red River showdown. And granted, it's great football. It's very compelling. I get it, big brands, but also those are the teams that are leaving the Big 12 that really left the conference that we love and hold so dear to our heart dead to rights. Shout out Brett Yormark and the Big 12 for stepping in and salvaging itself in the way that it has. But that's in spite of Oklahoma and Texas, not because of them. Especially Texas, who came in and blew up the Big 8 in the way we've talked about this. We hate Texas. Oklahoma stinks too. Just to see the pinnacle of our conference end up being those 2 teams getting a big spotlight would have been a bummer. So it felt like the good guys won for this. And I'll tell you what, it might not be a fan base that's worse, has a worse feeling right now than Oklahoma, because not only do you have a 10-2 season, you're not going to your conference championship in a conference that you've dominated over the last decade, but who's there? Your 2 rivals in Texas and your little brother Oklahoma State. Boy, what a weird year for Oklahoma.
Yeah, really weird year. I mean, they literally, they lose to Kansas on the road, and it wasn't even shocking. That's how bizarre the Big 12 has gotten. When Kansas beat Oklahoma, I wasn't stunned, which shows where Kansas has gotten as a program. But for OU, they've got to be a little bit frustrated because I think they feel, losing to Oklahoma State very emotional Oklahoma State team. They rode high that game, and they were able to find a way to get it done. Hurts for OU, but they can live with it long term, even if it's against an in-state rival. But yeah, to not make the championship game is going to hurt, and they're still going to get a great bowl game. But 10-win seasons in OU are fascinating for many fan bases. It's good, and for them, that's kind of the floor. Like, okay, we would hope you get 10 wins. But give Brent Venables a lot of credit. They had a very disappointing year last year, and they've been able to bounce back. But they've got some tough questions and situations going into the SEC.
I also just want to throw out here real quick. Probably last time we talked about Oklahoma as a Big 12 team. Would just like to share something with you real quick here. So the beginning of the year, I predicted every single game for every single Power 5 team. I got a lot wrong. I'll admit that. I got Oklahoma pretty damn good. Close. I had them losing to Texas.
Man.
That's the only one I missed. But I had them losing to Kansas and losing to Oklahoma State in back-to-back weeks. I dare anybody to find a better run than that.
That's pretty tough. First off, the gift game is off the rails.
Absolutely.
With the BoJack Horseman reference on that capture, but that's pretty impressive. I mean, you were so close. I mean, You're looking at just one miracle drive away from being dead right. In the OU game or in the Texas game. Otherwise, that's a loss for them too.
And it's one thing if I had like Oklahoma losing 6 games and then just happened to guess Oklahoma State and Kansas, but to have those as 2 of just 3 losses I expect, I think I don't know what I was thinking. It seems like a very crazy thing to think beforehand. So, they're going to lose at Kansas. And I liked Kansas, but I obviously had a lot of respect for Oklahoma as well. So that was good. Mississippi State also went 11 for 12. I went 12-0 with Georgia too. That one I don't feel very that one felt easy, but
yeah,
overall good year 1.
It's impressive, Brandon. Sounds like you need to be placing some futures ASAP based on that result right there. If I've ever seen it before.
But the next game that I want to talk about, I'm kind of looking through the rest of the slate. Kansas rolled through Cincinnati. It is what it is. Baylor and West Virginia. A good game. Same thing with UCF Houston a little bit. Just kind of stinky teams. I also didn't realize Oklahoma hung 69 on TCU. I knew that game was kind of out of hand in a shootout, like an SEC style football game.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize it got that bad. That's gnarly.
Yeah. I want to make a note on West Virginia and Baylor really quick.
Oh, yeah.
West Virginia, boy, I watched the last minute of that game. West Virginia scores with 23 seconds left on a 29-yard passing touchdown. And I was convinced that Baylor was going to pull off a Hail Mary similar to the Houston game because it had the same vibes. Like the sideline goes nuts. You're thinking, oh, man, West Virginia's in great shape. I'm like, they've been here before. But this time they held it together. But I just wanted to make that case on that game quick, Brandon, because I was definite deja vu vibes. And Baylor had a shot to win, but West Virginia – better team throughout the majority of the day, and they found a way to win at the end.
I also want to give one quick shout out to, trying to find it here. That Auburn-Alabama game ended so that the last play was so well thought out. And there's somebody on TikTok, I'm forgetting his name, but he absolutely nailed it because he talks about how we do Hail Marys right now and how they're not effective. When you just send everyone back, there's so many variables, so many things that can go wrong. But he drew up basically the exact play that Alabama ran. I can't find it. I might have gotten rid of it. Might not have been doing any numbies, so I just deleted it. But I think it was like Max Brownie or something. He played it at Washington.
Oh, yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, because how he describes it is that you send everyone to the end zone, and then you have your group of wide receivers, and then you have just somebody sneak out the back and then get to the other side of the end zone. So it's just like a one-on-one kind of matchup. Because a one-on-one is way more winnable when you have your number one receiver compared to 5 versus 5. That's
Mhm.
exactly what Alabama did, and it worked flawlessly. So
Pretty
shout out to
crazy.
them.
It's crazy.
A very, very big bummer for me. I would have loved to, because that's the scenario we were talking about, Drew Russell. Alabama loses to Auburn. They beat Georgia. You don't get in with 2 losses. And then you have to pick between, a 1-loss non-conference champion.
I know.
You probably look at Washington over Georgia. And then you get 2 Big 12 or 2 Pac-12 teams, 2 Big 10 teams if Texas loses.
Entertainment would have been off the rails, but we're not that lucky in this world, Brandon. We're not that lucky. Do you know what we were lucky about, though?
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to Iowa State, Kansas State.
I mean, that was the game I was saving that one. That's the
okay. All right.
Well, I mean,
all right. I'm nipping at the heels, but you go to yours, and then you just, I'm like a dog tugging at the chain on the first day of hunting season. I'm ready to go, but you keep going, and then you just unleash me when you're ready.
No, it's exactly where I wanted to go next, and because it's only in the Big 12 can you have a shootout in a snowstorm.
I mean, I don't even know how to explain that football game. I don't, because, all right, on paper, one team, time of possession, 42 minutes, 12 seconds to 17:48. One team runs 102 plays to 35. 32 first downs to 10. And yet the team with all those big numbers that sound extremely good lost. But then again, other numbers that you look at, from an Iowa State standpoint, they average 13.9 yards per play. That's pretty good. That's going to win some football games usually. That's usually like high school numbers for a top 3 team taking on a winless team, and it's turbo clock by the second quarter. Those are usually the kind of yards per play you're going to get in those games. But that happened in a collegiate football game in the snow.
In the snow.
And it was magical. It was, college football has been really weird this year. There have been times where I'm like, I've said this to many people. I've said to you too, Brandon, off the air about, is the product still as entertaining as it once was? That game reminded me, yes. That game was the beauty of college football. And even if Iowa State had lost, I wouldn't be as happy. But I still was like, that was an entertaining game. I was entertained for 3.5 hours. From first play
that in. I had more fun watching that game than watching Michigan Ohio State.
Yeah. I fully agree.
I mean, when you have a team that's as good as Kansas State is, and they're outplaying Iowa State in a pretty significant fashion throughout most of the game, but then Iowa State can rack up touchdown plays of 71, 77, 79. First of all, one 70-yard touchdown play is insane. They had 4 of them, and then another one of 33, and another one of 60, and another one of 82. I mean, just what a it might be the most entertaining. I might be prisoner of the moment here. That might be the most entertaining football game I've ever seen.
It would. I'm not going to fight you necessarily on that. I do know that Sama, that man likes running in the snow. Iowa State, he was pulling off enough big plays like mid-third quarter. I had to look up. So who is the NCAA rushing single game leader? Because he was pulling off this. I'm like, he's 2 big runs away from doing this thing. He was going on.
He had to have been pretty close. What did he finish at? 250?
He was at 276.
That's pretty. In a snowstorm.
The leader, I think, was P. Ryan from Oklahoma in 2014.
Yeah, because I remember, I'm pretty sure Melvin Gordon set the record against Nebraska in a game. And then the very next week, Samaje P. Ryan, or some Oklahoma running back.
I think it was P. Ryan.
Right. But I think they had 400 yards or something.
Yeah.
Unfathomable.
I mean, there was so many, and I can't remember. Iowa State had, 4 different plays, touchdown plays of 70-plus yards in one game. And in the previous 56 games, they had 4 total of 70-plus, 56 touchdowns. 56 games. It's an insane set. That's what makes it, that's what made that performance just like in real time, you don't believe it. Sama very first carry, 71 yards. You're like, that's crazy. I'm thinking, I don't know how this is going to go. I kind of thought it could get ugly for Iowa State. I don't know. And first carry, I'm like, oh, that's pretty great. But K-State,
they got one.
They got one. At least we're not going to go scoreless. And, K-State gets a couple field goals. And Sama breaks another one. You're like, man, this is crazy. But that Jalen Noel final pass for a touchdown that got him the ultimate lead in the win. And that was crazy, too. He just catches it, just starts sprinting down the sideline. K-State can't catch him. It was beautiful. I mean, seriously, those guys the game was great. Guys looked like they're having a blast. Shout out to all the people in Manhattan that made that game. It wasn't a full stadium, but I understand that's not easy to get to necessarily. It looked like a blast to be there, though, for the fans that were there. I was like, that looks just like a lot of fun to be there.
Man, I don't think you could have paid me enough money to be at that game. That looked miserable. You couldn't pay me enough money to play in that football game. I mean, they probably
You're
had
not
to
a snow football guy?
I love watching it from the comfort of my home. I just hate being cold. And playing high school football up in Nebraska, I hated playing in the cold. It looks so uncomfortable, especially in the snow like that. Like you just get wet and cold. But my God, you couldn't tell that they were affected by it at all. Though, and that's what's so beautiful about it. That those guys, you get in the locker room, they're juiced. They're so stoked. And maybe that's why they're playing at the next level, and I never did. Also, 5'7" and 140 pounds in high school, that probably didn't help. But I can't say enough good things about that game. I just can't.
Entertainment factor was crazy. I love that. I love that entire Saturday of football. Like the Friday games, I thought were pretty rough. I didn't think they were that great in general on Friday. Like just across the board, we're not going to mention any close games for sure that day. Arkansas was lost against Mizzou, etc. But like that Saturday slate was great all day. I mean, there was some great games. Washington State was crazy. We mentioned Alabama, Auburn. Big 12 has some great games that go down to the wire. And to kind of get that capped off as a night game, it was perfect. I'm happy K-State to clear the field. I'm happy they kept that snow on the ground because I'm kind of surprised they didn't clear it. They could have.
Yeah. Well, it was coming down so much. They're probably just like, it's not going to matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it was going pretty good throughout that broadcast.
Yeah.
And you had, Fox broadcaster Tim Brando on the call. And, well, when it comes to the king of cliches, Brandon, when it comes to broadcasting, Tim Brando is off the chains. Every time I hear him say, "How do you do?" I lose it. I laugh every time. I'm like, this Tim Brando, this man is off the rails. I don't know. But it was an incredible football game. And for Iowa State, a season in which they overachieved considering the offseason turmoil, all that. It didn't feel like they had still a signature victory on the season. Like they beat some, Oklahoma State was their signature victory, a good victory, but it didn't feel like it when they played.
No.
We were discussing if Mike Gundy and Matt Campbell were going to make it. That was our storyline for that game, which is hilarious now. But this just felt like a signature victory, and it tells me one thing. Farmageddon, I don't care if a lot of people in this country don't view it as a rivalry. These are not two historically great programs, but these two usually put on a great show year in and year out. Make this a yearly game. Find a way, 2027, to both of those athletic departments. Find a way to get that game in Kansas City. Let's keep that rivalry going year in, year out.
You're absolutely right. Oh my gosh, what a slate! I remember because I had a late night on Friday, to say the least, and so all I wanted to do at that time was go to bed. I gotta get to bed. It's got to be 1 a.m. It was 9:45, and I cannot go to bed while this game's going on. And the only other time I've experienced that is the Colorado State game earlier this year. It was like that was actually late, not just like my old man, clock.
You're right. That was late.
I was like, I'm no shot am I going to bed during this game. No, and there's a part of me that was so at that last drive there was a real ticky-tacky pass interference call as Kansas State was driving. And I wanted Iowa State to win. I always want Iowa State to win. But I was like, I'm kind of rooting for overtime. It's ticky-tacky. It's a bad call, but call it. Let's get some free football out of it.
Yeah, that game, if there was any game that probably deserved that from just a casual viewer, I mean, that's the game, right? I mean, just the snow, the chaos. But for Iowa State, they hung in there. Big plays were absolutely crazy. For Kansas State, pretty tough loss because, frankly, I thought they executed great offensively.
Yeah.
And defensively, they did force 2 turnovers. But if I'm a K-State fan, I'm pretty furious that we gave up all those big plays because 1 or 2 can happen in a game. But, man, to get that happen over and over and over, Brandon. Iowa State ran 2 plays the entire night in K-State territory, 0 in the red zone.
0 plays in the red zone.
0. And they won. Not even I'm telling you, the team out east couldn't even pull that off.
In a shootout, you had to score 7 touchdowns to win that football game.
Yeah, they found a way. They found a way. Yep. Crazy.
That is outstanding stuff. You can't make it up any better than that.
Yeah, it's a game that you're just going to remember. Like, as an Iowa State fan, that's one that fans are going to remember a long time. I personally will. It had it all.
Had it all.
It had it all.
And great. I mean, on the flippity flop, Kansas State fans probably not too nostalgic over it. Cap's kind of a disappointing season for them. I mean, they really had
in a weird way, yeah,
to go to Arlington
and give Kleiman credit for building that type of, you know, if they get 8 wins, and you're like, boy, that's too bad. They could have done more.
Yeah.
So it shows how far and how good of a program he's built. Coach Bill Snyder had a lot of great years there too. Yeah, it's weird that you feel like they kind of underachieved a little bit, which is kind of insane when you think about it.
Yep. Yeah, and now they're losing Will Howard. He's in the transfer portal. I'm sure we'll talk plenty about the transfer portal. I guess it opens up next week officially. So
we'll dig into it, ladies and gentlemen. Don't you worry. Brandon and I can't wait to open our wallets and start throwing our big bucks into these athletic departments to go get these kids. We can't wait. Former 4-star recruits. Like, come on, come here for $100K. We got you. We're going to start. Brandon and I are writing checks. We should create we should have a fan vote that you and I will pool money of tens of dollars.
Tens of
dollars. $12 each. And then we will write a check to an athletic department. Just random Big 12 to athletic department. I pick Arizona State.
Fun fact, when Arizona blew out Utah, I tweeted about the arrogance of Utah fans. I was like, they think they're going to come in and dominate the Big 12. They're not even going to be the best new team. Somebody wasn't very happy with me. So much so that, because it's very clear I'm a Nebraska fan in my Twitter profile. He came back around on Friday. I was like, how's that bowl game treating you? I'm like, not great, but I was right. That tweet that you're replying to, I'm right, motherfucker. So
isn't it fun though to troll fan bases? Like it's a blast.
I'm oddly having a good time with it. I'm usually not a confrontation guy. I'm in a month-long dispute with a guy on TikTok because of how he's talked about Russell Wilson. I had to come. He was talking about how it's the worst trade in NFL history. So on Monday, I got back in his comment section. No, because originally I was like, okay, well, Russell Wilson's not the problem, this and that, and he was like, fuck you, yeah, he is. Because then the whole roster stinks because of how much they're paying him and how many draft picks. And I'm like, whatever. If you don't watch the games, it can be our little secret. You can tell me about it. And then so Monday I got back and I'm like, hey, fun fact, 5-0 since your shitty TikTok, and he's got the best touchdown to interception ratio in the NFL. And he's like, well, they're real close to the playoffs, aren't they? I'm like, wow. Internally, I'm like, yeah, they kind of are. They're going to make the playoffs. First thing I'm doing is getting back in that guy's comment section. So we're getting after it.
You can't beat it. I miss. I might need to get back to my internet troll days of like junior high because I didn't have social media yet. I didn't have a phone yet. I didn't have one until high school, which was tough. So I need to entertain myself somehow. So I used to ESPN's comment section used to be legendary.
Oh,
because
yeah.
it wasn't like today where it doesn't exist. You have to log into Facebook. It was just a bloodbath of trolls. And I'll tell you what, my username, shout out to my guy Estrada. That was my username, 66 Estrada. That dude, I was trolling. I used to hammer Mizzou comment boards.
Let's go.
I was and people get fed up. I'd be like, fire Pinkle for no reason. Just fire him. He just doesn't get the job done. I don't know. Chase Daniel's not very good. James Franklin's not very good. I used to just go nuts. Like I would hammer message boards and then people would rip like Iowa State. They're like, you guys haven't done anything. I'm like, don't care. You're still trash just like us.
Not what I was talking about.
Not part of the conversation.
What I said was right. That's my thing. What I said was right. If you want to talk about something else, we could talk about something else. I was right.
Yeah. So I was like, it was fun. I see why there's a lot of like burner accounts on X, Twitter, that are just 13, 14, 15-year-old guys probably. And I'm like, hey, you know what? I could rip these kids, but I'm like, I was one of them too.
Yeah.
You just got to let them be. They have trash takes. I did too. I loved it. It's fun to troll, especially at that age. I think it's really fun to troll, but it still is. You and I mean, you still troll.
Yeah.
I'm going to troll here and there too. I love, especially people I know. I love to troll a little bit. It's fun to jab. So I don't know, but yes, that's very fun. I don't know.
Well, perfect. Well, last thing I wanted to talk about here, it's a championship game. We got Oklahoma State, got Texas. We're finally here. It's going to be an all-orange Big 12 championship game, freshly off of an all-purple Big 12 championship game. I guess let me just ask you this: what can Oklahoma State win? Can they? What does that look like?
Well, sure they can. I mean, any team can win, Brandon. But it's going to. I mean, they're going to have. You're going to see. It's got to be the Ollie Gordon show again, offensively. I don't think anybody's going to debate that. I'm sure Texas, especially a nasty fine, pretty much they're going to be saying all week, if they're going to beat us, they're going to be throwing the football. If you're Texas, we want Alan Bowman. Alan Bowman threw 47 times last week in their win over BYU. If he throws it 47 times again, I don't think they beat Texas. I could be wrong, but I'll go out
in a win. That's insane.
A win. 2 interceptions, 31 of 47. Not a bad game, but the 2 picks he's got to clean up. For Oklahoma State, they've got to feature Ollie quite a bit. They've got to win the time of possession. The problem is Texas just has some really, really tough guys. Devondre Sweat, their senior defensive lineman. He's the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. Those teams just came out this week. Anthony Hill Jr. is an absolute boss in defensive end. Byron Murphy II is a tough lineman. So they've got some guys. Oklahoma State does have the Big 12 Coach of the Year in Mike Gundy, which that rose some debate today of whether or not that was warranted if he should have been Coach of the Year. There were some interesting candidates, but they're going to have to establish something offensively and defensively. You got to find a way to, they got to force turnovers. I mean, it's all cliche, Brandon, but it's going to take some work because they have not played great football in general since their win in Bedlam. It seems like they've just been kind of flat the last 3 weeks. I feel in a way they're fortunate considering the close calls they've had the last couple of weeks to be playing in Dallas, but it's a whole new ball game. They didn't play Texas this year. I think Oklahoma State probably was a little disappointed by that, to not get one more crack at them before they go off the SEC. They're going to get their crack. I'm sure that they're going to give Texas, I'd be shocked if they didn't, their best shot.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And by the way, it's so funny to me that the big argument against Mike Gundy winning Coach of the Year is, well, he got blown out by South Alabama and Central Florida. Yeah, and he's still playing for the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah.
This team was that bad, and then he coached them, and now they're in the Big 12 championship game. So I think that's funny. You're making my point for me.
And I'll tell you what, Brandon, if they were arguing for my guy, Gustavo, Mr. Malzahn, maybe I could defend it because I'm all in on
Yeah.
Gustavo in
Yeah.
Central Florida. What a finish. But no, you're dead right. Like, this was not exactly an outstanding Okie State team at the beginning of the year and at times even the end of the year. But
Yeah.
here they are, right? Here they are.
Absolutely right. And I think what was so scary about Texas is that formula that you just listed out, which is spot on. You got to force turnovers, you got to win the time of possession, got to be better physical, and then you got to get breaks. That was the same formula that Iowa State had, like executed in their game against Texas, but they couldn't keep it up, couldn't take advantage. And I think Iowa State's offense is better than Oklahoma State's offense, top to bottom. Um,
Yeah.
so I think it's a real tough matchup. But like you said, it is Oklahoma. We are going to see the most dialed in Oklahoma State team I think we've seen since probably the last time they were in Arlington.
Yeah, and they'll be ready to go. They're gonna see what they can bring. Texas, the problem is Texas got a lot to play for too.
Yeah.
You cannot deny that fact whatsoever. As they know they win, there's definitely a shot of making that college football playoff, and whether they make it or not, those fans are going to be complaining nonstop. That's just a guarantee.
I love to complain.
They got a PhD in it for sure. So it'll be interesting to see how just it all plays out. No, Oklahoma State's got to probably play the card of nobody believes in us, but this locker room, we're going to go out and prove everything wrong. That usually is going to rile up the team a little bit. But those first 15 minutes, I think, are going to be a strong, strong indicator of how that game plays out. Because if Texas gets out to a quick start, Brandon, I think it's going to be a disaster. Yeah, I really believe that.
So we'll wrap up the show with this. Who wins?
Man, this is tough, Brandon. On paper, Texas is right. No one's going to deny it. I think, have a little more talent. I think they're playing better football. They've been pretty consistent for the majority of the year, even in their loss. They didn't play bad, but some of their wins, they were inconsistent. I don't care. I'll be dead wrong, but I'd be physically ill if I picked them. I'm going to go Oklahoma State, and I'll pick them for these reasons. Two of them, Ollie Gordon and Ollie Gordon. This kid can really play, but they're going to have to find a way to. They don't have to win the battle of the trenches offensive line against Texas' nasty front. They got to find a way to be even. If they're even with Texas's line, that's a huge win for Oklahoma State because Ollie Gordon's he can make some guys miss. He's going to be a pain. So if they can just be half effective, he can do damage. But if Texas line eats, it could be problems. So, but I'm going to say Ollie Gordon. And, Texas has been prone to mistakes as well throughout the years. So who knows? They've been choke artists the last 15 years. So maybe we can find another one in the bag.
Yeah, horns down all the way.
You know it.
Objectively, Texas could absolutely blow the doors off of Oklahoma State. And the plays might be clearing out before Nelly gets on stage at halftime. But I need it. I need it, Drew. I'm sorry. I need it. I need
how good of a halftime guest is Nelly, though?
It's interesting. It is an interesting choice.
I've told many people I went to Minnesota Vikings playoff game last January, and I've joked with many people. I paid $130 to watch a Ludacris concert because the Vikings were lost, and that was who is at halftime. I'm cracking up these guys who are big in the early thousands, mid thousands. They're like, we're just gonna do halftime shows now. So, yeah. I mean, it's great to me. I don't know.
Pays the bills. Well, perfect. So we'll wrap up with anything else you'd like to add before we sign off for the final time before
when we talk next week, Brandon. We're gonna have some playoff brackets. We're gonna have some bowl matchups. We're gonna have a little more of the coaching tree. Heck, we might even talk some Big 12 basketball. We might even get into that. We've said that for the last few weeks. Maybe we'll talk about it. Maybe we just will wait till January, like the average fan.
Maybe
we'll see. We'll make that decision. But it's going to be a fascinating weekend, and man, I'm tempted to find a way to get to that committee room one year. I really want to sit in on it. I'm going to say I'll just be a journalist. I won't say anything, and then when I hear something just stupid, I just interrupt. That's my dream. That is my life dream. So that's all I got. It should be a great weekend of football, and I can't wait. I can't wait.
Can't wait.